A good Monday morning to you, Central Georgia, and a happy last day of June. Hard to believe that once we turn the calendar into tomorrow, we are in the second half of 2025. And with that, moving into a new month, we have a lot of things that we have to talk about, and specifically something that we haven't mentioned too much so far, which is the tropics. So we'll talk about your whole entire forecast, which we are seeing some good news as we head to 4th of July weekend. I know that's what most of you are probably tuning in for. So first, we'll talk about the immediate and really go into the past, because yesterday marked yet another day of rain here in Central Georgia. Once again, not everyone's seeing something in the way of rain. You can see areas like Twiggs County, Bleckley County, most of Dodge County. They got left out of seeing anything in the way of rain yesterday, but some isolated heavy totals due to a couple of scattered thunderstorms yesterday. How about close to 3 inches on the county line of Wheeler and Montgomery counties yesterday? An inch and a half just in Soperton, one county north in Trutland County. Isolated amounts of maybe just over an inch and a half in this little spot in southeastern Wilkinson County. 2.1 inches up here near the downtown Macon area. A little bit less of a total as we go down into southern Bibb County, which is where we get our readings at Middle Georgia Regional Airport. Only a trace reported in some areas of Warner Robins, but if you go over towards the east and southeast, you can see some higher totals, probably closer to the Bon Air area, going on Highway 96 over to Twiggs County. Just shy of an inch north of Cordele, taking it up to right here on the county line of Jones and Monroe counties, 2 inches totals. And then you can see an inch in total over there in Upson County. And once again, that inch and a half that we already pointed out, and just shy of an inch in Sandersville. So where you see these very faint light blue colors, that's going to be maybe a trace, a tenth or 2/10 of an inch of rain. But some isolated areas that did receive maybe upwards to about an inch and a half or 2 inches, like this shade down here in Wheeler and Montgomery counties, and just over to the west of Americus, west of Sumter County, in between Lumpkin, Georgia, and Americus and Ellaville, pretty close to about 3 inches in some of those spots. Talking about the temperatures yesterday, we only crawled to a high temperature of 91 degrees. Of course, it did feel warmer, but that temperature was below average of 93 this time of year. Record yesterday, 106 degrees back in 2012, so very thankful we're not in the neighborhood of those triple-digit numbers. I did mention that the colors got a lot lighter in color as we went down to South Bibb County, so our official recording at Middle Georgia Regional Airport was 4/10 of an inch of rain, and that continues to add to the year departure of rain. We are nearly 5 inches above where we should be this time of year. Sunrise yesterday 6:30, and the sunset was at 8:46. Not going to see too much fluctuation in between these numbers. If anything, the sunrise is just going to continue to get a tad bit later as opposed to the sunset. So we are entering the last day of June today, and in fact, the last 5, maybe even, I believe this is 5, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes, 5 days in a row we have recorded rainfall at Middle Georgia Regional Airport. So you can guess it, that continues to put us in that very wet category. When you add up all the days that we have recorded rain at Middle Georgia Regional Airport, now this is just one specific location. Some areas have gotten maybe about half of these total numbers in some isolated spots over the course of the last month. But here in South Bibb County, we have recorded over 8 inches of rain in the month of June. Take a look at what your average June rainfall is. Just shy of 4 inches, so we have definitely doubled that number, getting upwards to almost 5 inches above where we should be average in June. But we are still a couple inches away from the record back in 2013 of 12 1/4 of an inch of rain. We would have to get a very, very heavy downpour throughout today from maybe some scattered rain chances to really get close to flirting with that number. But we are definitely well above average for the month of June, and that's going to continue to push our number well above where we should be this time of year. But not a bad thing, because it does allow us to go into a really dry stretch, hopefully sometime in the future, and continue to see that number hover above average, and we're not dealing with anything in the way of drought conditions whatsoever. So your main headlines with your forecast: more of a summertime pattern that's continuing from this past weekend, at least for today. But going into tomorrow, a little bit better rain chances. That's what we're talking about, still in the form of scattered showers and some storms, but it does look like we have more of a driving mechanism for maybe some possible organization with rain chances. We'll go over the specifics of that in just 1 second. And then as we go into the weekend, as it currently stands, you're going to hear me say that a lot because we are still a couple days out from 4th of July and getting into the 5th and the 6th this weekend. But the rain chances as of right now are trending a little bit slimmer. So let's take a walk around the quad. Plenty of blue skies can be found across central Georgia. Up here in downtown Dublin, you're not really seeing much in the way of cloud cover, but some scattered poofy cumulus clouds here and there down in Warner Robins in your bottom right, over to the bottom left at the Georgia National Fairgrounds, and in the top left up here in downtown Macon. So really we're basically seeing predominantly mostly sunny skies to kick off this Monday, which will continue to allow for a temperature warm up, but not as drastic as we've seen in the days that passed. If you remember this time last week, we were already talking about temperatures that were somewhere in the mid to maybe even upper 80s, and they were definitely feeling a couple of degrees warmer. Right now it's a mix of upper 70s, but mainly low 80s. Lots of 81s like you see in Sparta over to Eatonton and Monticello. 82, just 1 degree higher in Milledgeville, Sandersville, down to Wrightsville. 83 in Dublin, 84 the warmest temperature on the map down in Vidalia. But you can see this train of some upper 70s, even a little bit cooler over in areas like Taylor County and up into Upson County. And that's in part due to because of the fact they had some cloud cover this morning that was lower in the atmosphere. So some of those foggy skies are just now continuing to thin out and lift up into the atmosphere. It did inhibit the warm up in those areas for just a little bit this morning. Now let's go over to the dew points map. Just continuing to see this dark green color very widespread across central Georgia, especially over to the east where we have been seeing these dew point temperatures hover a little bit warmer than the rest of the pack. You go down I-75, Unadilla and Cordele popping up some mid and upper 70s for those dew point temperatures. So now we translate it to the feels like numbers. Already feeling like the 90s over to the east, 93 in Gordon, 94 in Dublin, 92 in Sandersville, feels like 91 in Johnson County and Wrightsville. Feels like 91 down in Unadilla, 89 in Cordele, but virtually everyone is at least feeling like the 80s, maybe even into the 90s, with the exception of Thomaston, who's hanging out here at 79 degrees, so it does feel pretty good over in Upson County. And they're always a little bit cooler than the rest of central Georgia, just kind of due to their topography they have there. It's a little bit hilly over in Upson County, so it does allow for maybe a little bit of some cooler temperatures when everyone else is warming up pretty quickly. Here's a look at the winds and the wind gusts. Nothing really worth noting. There's no color on this map, but maybe a steady breeze occasionally, about 3 to 5, maybe even 6 miles per hour. So talking about the heat index, when we factor in that humidity, what are we going to feel like during peak heating later this afternoon? Well, the Meteogram has us topping out somewhere in the mid to upper 90s, so 97 right there at 3 and 4 o'clock this afternoon. And then it looks like it's indicating that maybe we see a little bit of a cool down because of some scattered showers popping up into the picture. Satellite and radar picture, mostly clear. We have some clouds that are a little bit higher up, still lingering around the picture, but overall it is mostly sunny. We take a big picture view at the entire state of Georgia. A lot of cloud cover over to the west in Alabama, maybe creeping up into north and northwestern Georgia. A couple of spotty showers did pop up within some of that cloud cover, but we take it down to the south, just for kicks, kind of monitoring our satellite and radar. The Gulf is pretty active right now. There are plenty of showers, plenty of thunderstorms off the Gulf Coast of Florida, areas around the Big Bend, getting over into the Panhandle. So if any of you are making plans to go ahead and taking the whole week off, maybe heading down to these coastal areas of Florida, it might be a bit rainy once you do arrive there. And this is going to be a focal point of our forecast right here down in the Gulf throughout the next couple of days. There's a lot of things that we have to continue to monitor as we go into the 4th of July weekend. But right now, let's take a look at your surface map. Believe it or not, we actually have high pressure down here at the surface. Obviously, we're still getting rain and some storms pop up down there along the Gulf Coast. So high pressure doesn't necessarily always dry you out. However, it is a little bit drier at the surface. The mid levels of the atmosphere are probably pretty humid and have a good enough moisture to continue to allow for rain down to the south and the southwest of us. And it still is remaining really quiet on the eastern half of the United States. Except if we go up here to Missouri, Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, you can see a frontal boundary. It's more so stationary on the left side, and then the right side of it kind of kicking into gear as more of a cold front, all attached to a low pressure center over here back into southeast Colorado. This stationary portion of the boundary will continue to kick into gear, so this whole section should be a cold front probably in not too much time, but it will continue to push down towards the south and the southeast. And that's where it's going to have implications to our forecast, starting as early as tomorrow, but lingering a little bit into Wednesday and into Thursday before we finally see maybe some slightly drier air behind that frontal boundary make its appearance in central Georgia. So let's talk about the almanac today. Average high 93 degrees, average low was 70 degrees. We're hovering around that average low this morning temperature wise. And we may not even get to this average mark once again into this afternoon. And a far cry from the record. Wow, 2012 was definitely a hot year. 108 is the record for today. We're not going to get anywhere near that territory. Even the feels like numbers are not going to get anywhere near that triple digit number. But I think the big thing we're going to be looking at today is, do we record rain for a 6th day in a row at Middle Georgia Regional Airport? If we do, it would probably do good enough to push that year departure number over 5 inches where we should be this time of year. But we'll continue to monitor how things play out this afternoon. But we do have some rain chances. It's a very similar day to what we had Sunday, what we had Saturday, what we had Friday. A rinse and repeat forecast is your main headline. With those scattered rain chances, they're going to come in the form of scattered showers, a couple of storms, so some heavy downpours, some frequent lightning can be embedded within some of that scattered rain, as it does try to get a little organization today, but it is still mainly of the widely scattered variety. We'll go over why it has a little bit of organization coming up once we get to future view. A high of 90 today. So the average temperature this time of year, around 93 degrees. It looks like we're going to fall below that threshold once again. But of course, the heat indices that, like I just showed you, probably going to feel a little bit warmer. The mid 90s, predominantly the upper 90s is what I believe most of central Georgia will be feeling like. And I wouldn't even rule out maybe seeing a triple digit or two in some of those areas like Unadilla and Cordele, maybe over into Milledgeville, over into Washington County, just because they have a little bit more moisture content. So each degree increase that you get on that dew point temperature can have a bit of an exponential impact on that feels like number. And I wouldn't be surprised to see some areas flirting with the 100-degree mark. So let's play it through future view. Let's talk about today's rain chances. Very scattered in nature, starting in the early afternoon hours around 2, 3 o'clock this afternoon. But notice there's plenty of activity down to the south and the southeast of us. Number one, you see these wind arrows. They're coming in off the Atlantic coast. This could all be courtesy of what we call a sea breeze, so ushering in some of that moisture from the Atlantic Ocean a little bit farther inland. So that's why you are seeing widely scattered showers, a couple of storms down in our southern and our southeasternmost counties. As this continues to push up towards the north and the northwest, you will see, number one, the timestamp at 7 o'clock. So that's getting into around the time that the sun does set, but there's still plenty of surface heat, still plenty of moisture left to work with, but trying to gain a little bit more of a linear organization. Now, this isn't a continuous line of rain. I do believe some areas will get some breaks. We could see a break like right here in Milledgeville. Plenty of showers down to the southwest, plenty of showers up to the north and the northeast. But it looks like Baldwin County might be missing out on the fun. You'll see those occasional breaks as we go throughout later this evening into the nighttime hours. But right now, 10 o'clock this time stamp, the sun is going to already be set. So we are going to lose our surface heating. So we're going to see a lot of weakening in activity, but it still may push all the way through central Georgia up to the north and the northwest. But right there around midnight to 1 a.m., we're really going to see a downtick in activity and a downtick in intensity. But it does look like pretty widely scattered showers and storms. I still have about a 40% chance of seeing some rain throughout the rest of today, but that may be a little bit greater, more so about a 50-50 shot of seeing some rain today. Now we go into tomorrow morning. The newest Future View run is hinting at scattered showers, maybe a rumble of thunder or two already during the morning hours, which have been predominantly dry. I'm not sure I really buy this resolution right here, because if we have that line of showers and storms come through later in the day into the evening and nighttime hours tonight, it's going to use up all that fuel that you do have in our westernmost counties. Not going to have too much time to recover to continue to sprout some rain chances. But heading into the afternoon, if we get some ample sunshine, so once again, our temperatures will continue to warm up. We're still keeping that muggy air in place, but then we start to see activity pop up to the northwest as opposed down towards the southeast today. This is going to be courtesy of that front that I was referring to. That's way up to the north and the northwest right now. It's going to continue to push closer and closer to central Georgia. So that's where you're trying to see a little bit of linear organization from kind of the top right of your screen down to the bottom left. Still looks like our fair share of widely scattered showers, some pockets of heavier rain, more intense weather, which would be in the form of some thunderstorms, which is not all atypical this time of year. More warm, more humid. We're going to continue to see scattered rain chances in the form of showers and storms virtually each and every day. So that timing does look like it's sometime in the afternoon into the evening. Once again, we go into the nighttime hours and activity fizzles out. We start out Wednesday morning predominantly dry, and then we go into Wednesday afternoon. More scattered showers popping up into the picture, but the coverage doesn't look as impressive as what we see for Monday and what we see for Tuesday. It does look like still having the possibility of a storm, and then we go into Thursday. So that front passing through, it looks like it's going to be sometime between Tuesday and Wednesday. Again, it's not going to be a clean sweeping motion. It's not going to be a fast moving front. So it's going to kind of linger in the near vicinity throughout the midweek, which could act as a bit of a focal point for where precipitation does pop up. It's going to be areas down towards the south or along where the boundary does sit. But as far as future view goes, as of right now, is going to be the 3 a.m. hour on Thursday. I'm taking you to the day one storm outlook because I want to talk to you about what areas are in a level risk for today. Now, everyone virtually looks to be in a level 1 out of 5 risk. Don't think I see any shades of yellow here on this graphic, but just showing you how widespread the impacts are going to be from this frontal boundary in areas to the north and the northwest of us. You can see this risk does end somewhere in western Tennessee, northern Mississippi, so it's creeping close to central Georgia. By the end of today, it should be really close to us, maybe only about a state or two away. But now in central Georgia, we kind of zoom in, take a localized view. No storm outlook for today, but it still doesn't mean you can't see a strong or a severe thunderstorm. It's just going to be very unorganized in nature, very convective and diurnally driven, which means it's going to operate off the heat of the day. No rhyme or reason to where a strong or a severe storm does pop up, other than how much moisture do you have and how warm do your temperatures get. So let's go to your day 2 outlook. Central Georgia still doesn't find themselves in an outlook just yet. We could see some changes with this. We're still about 24 hours out from this day 2 storm outlook taking place. I wouldn't doubt it if maybe we see a level 1 issued by this time tomorrow, just because there's a little bit more organization and a driving force with that front to create kind of a focal point for some rain in the form of showers and storms. But we still don't find ourselves in an outlook as we go into day 3 on Wednesday right now. So we're out of storm outlooks as it does currently stand, but you still can't rule out the potential for seeing an isolated strong or a severe storm each of the next 3 days. Like I said, it's just not going to have much organization to it. So let's go over some of your event-specific forecasts. We have a lot of events taking place this week, from 4th of July fireworks celebrations, or if it's just your typical summertime day today, haven't quite headed out of town just yet, the pool is going to be a great way to cool off. I know a high near 90 degrees doesn't seem all that warm, but of course that 90 degrees will feel more like the mid and the upper 90s. Afternoon and evening shower and storm chances. So of course, if things get a little bit dark outside, you hear some rumbles of thunder off in the distance. That's your sign to go ahead and head indoors. Go ahead and dry off if you are spending your day by the pool. Not going to be something that you want to be outside for, because we can see our fair share of pretty frequent lightning during the summertime hours. And if a storm is to pop up a strong or a severe tag, you have heavy downpours, you have the possibility of maybe some small hail cores, and your fair share of gusty winds, which will blow around all those loose items outside, but still very isolated and a better chance than not of just remaining relatively dry or just seeing a shower today, as opposed to more intense downpours in the way of thunderstorms. So let's go over your next 3 days. I showed you future view. We can sum all that up in a simpler graphic. Right now, this does look like it is not entirely accurate. So I made another graphic like this, so the high temperatures aren't necessarily going to be too accurate, or the rain chances won't. So we'll go back and revisit that. I guess this is kind of useless now, but we'll talk about the next 3 days when we get to the 7-day forecast at the end of this. So basically, looking at the 4th of July travel forecast too. Today, a good day to head out on the road. We're not in any kind of travel outlook, but GDOT has come out with this very helpful graphic about which days are going to be busiest for 4th of July travel. Well, you can probably guess it. With the holiday being on Friday, many people are probably taking that day off of work and probably heading out of town just a day earlier on Thursday. So Thursday going to be one of your heavy traffic days between 12 and 8 p.m. Well, we will start to see an increase in traffic on Tuesday and Wednesday. I know it says typical traffic, but you'll probably see above average congestion with the sheer volume of people on the roads. But traveling on the 4th itself, that's expected to be the lightest traffic day of the next week ahead. And then it picks back up on Saturday. Then we go into Sunday when many people are heading back into town from the holiday weekend. We are expecting another uptick into some heavy traffic, specifically between 5 and 8 p.m., probably even a little bit earlier than that. And then we get back to some typical traffic, but still a little bit greater than normal on Monday. Some people may be taking that extra day off on Monday to really enjoy the entire duration of this weekend. So it's a big holiday weekend. Just want to continue to keep you updated about when the roads are going to be busier as opposed to your normal traffic days. But now let's talk about those afternoon high temperatures. We can kind of get into what I was trying to show you with the next 3 days graphic. 90 for a high today, down to 88 tomorrow. We may see temperatures around the 90-degree mark. It's all going to be dependent on what time that rain pops up. And right now we do think it's going to be a little bit earlier, but the latest run of Futureview did say otherwise. So somewhere in the upper 80s near 90 degrees. First day of July not going to be all too different from the last day of June and the second day of July, where the forecasted high is once again 90 degrees. But going into Thursday and Friday, the 4th of July itself, we are going to see a bit of an uptick in those high temperatures. Not terribly much. However, we know if the humidity sticks around and these numbers do climb this high, then we're very likely going to deal with near 100-degree feels-like temperatures. But there may be some relief in sight in terms of that. Let's go over to your muggy meter, where we definitely see our fair share of points that are outlined in this very muggy region, this dark green color. But once we go into Thursday on into Friday, a little bit of a downtick in the humidity. And that sticks around into Saturday, but even more of a downtick as we go into Sunday. So it does look like there is some slightly drier air that does push in behind this frontal boundary. It's just going to take some time for this front to get here. So Thursday, if we climb somewhere, say in the low 90s, probably going to feel more like the upper 90s near 100 degrees. But the feels like numbers wouldn't be too much of a stretch on Friday. So maybe not necessarily feeling like the triple digits, still feeling a little bit warmer because temperatures are going to warm up in light of lesser moisture in the forecast, because lesser moisture does mean that we do have a little bit slimmer rain chances, and hopefully we can continue to see a good trend for 4th of July weekend itself. So let's talk about some of those feels like numbers, at least for the rest of today, tomorrow, and into Wednesday, which is as far as this Futureview graphic does go. Mid-90s for feels like numbers. Again, we typically go a little bit above and beyond what these numbers do say. So I think give or take about 2 to 3 degrees on some of these numbers, maybe more like 96 here in Macon, feeling more like 97, 98 down in Dublin. But at least we're not seeing widespread pink like over here in northern Mississippi. Those areas are expected to feel like the triple digits, maybe even getting into some heat advisory criteria. So we'll be very thankful where we can get relief. Now going into Tuesday, still not seeing too much in the way of blistering hot feels like numbers. They may tick up just a little bit because I put the pause point a little earlier in the afternoon, but now Futureview is trending a little bit later for those rain chances. And still somewhere in the mid-90s as we go into Wednesday afternoon and evening. This is 7 p.m. on Wednesday, still feeling like the mid-90s. Albany feeling like 97, some very faint areas of that pink shade, but that looks to be down to our south and our southwest. So we're keeping the pink shades at least out of central Georgia, very widespread, but some isolated areas could pop up a 100 or 2 as we go into the feels like numbers. So let's pick it up with the long range models. This is what you all probably want to see. Typically, the long range models isn't too much of a talking point, but with such a busy weekend ahead, all of you are trying to get that first look at what the forecast does shape up to be. So notice that we see most of the rain chances down to the south of us. Some of that rain does creep up into central Georgia, so still can't rule out seeing some rain as we go into Thursday afternoon, but starting to see some shades of yellow down there, which maybe just indicates a little bit better agreement amongst the long-range models. But take a look at what happens as we continue into the future. This is 11 a.m. on the 4th of July itself, starting to see some shades of pink, some shades of red. So when we get into tropical season, that can indicate maybe some circulation, some organization into a possible low pressure center, but it still looks like whatever is there is off the Gulf Coast. It could be creating some rain chances for areas down near the Big Bend, maybe over there on the Panhandle. But central Georgia here, we go into 4th of July weekend, it could be a mighty nice one, just a scattered shower or maybe a storm that you have to duck and dodge. But a lot lesser of a chance of it on Friday, maybe into Saturday and Sunday as well, as opposed to what we're dealing with today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. So let's continue to play it out. This is Sunday at 6 p.m. We do see the GFS trying to hint at some rain chances to the north of us that could be creeping down into the state of Georgia, but most of the rain can be found down in the Gulf, along the peninsula of Florida, off into the Atlantic Ocean, before we get back into maybe some widespread rain going into Monday at 4 p.m. lots of rain over here towards the Gulf Coast of Louisiana, Mississippi, getting over into Alabama. So that could be indicating possible tropical development, but we'll talk about that in just 1 second too. So as your 4th of July weekend forecast does stand currently, these were the numbers I just had on that graphic, but obviously it didn't correlate for the next 2 days. This is going to be for your Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. 20% chance of a shower or a storm each and every day as it does currently stand, and this is definitely overshooting it. We may even kind of clip these rain chances in half, maybe go away with rain chances as we get closer, but it still does look like we have a little bit of humidity in the forecast, and we will definitely have the warmer temperatures. 94 on the 4th itself is going to be the highest temperature I have forecasted on your 7-day, and then still hovering somewhere in the low 90s as we go into Saturday and on into Sunday. But with that downtick in humidity, that's why the rain chances are a little less at about 20%, so an even greater chance that you do remain dry each and every day. And with less humidity in the forecast, these 94s, 93s, 91s are going to feel a little bit warmer, but definitely not to the degree that they have been feeling warmer, nearly about 10 degrees, maybe even getting up to 15 degrees in some spots. But I did mention something about the tropics. So we have been very closely monitoring them. We have a potential area of development off here down in the Gulf. So just to the west of Florida, down to the south of the Panhandle. Still pretty slim chances of developing. Now we're probably about to come up on another update with this, so I'll continue to keep you updated on the percent chances of developing, but only 20% over the next 7 days. So pretty slight chances of developing. And you do notice that this yellow shade does go over the Panhandle, over into the Atlantic Ocean. Well, this could indicate that whatever forms wants to go over into the Atlantic, or we could see formation happen just to the east of Florida, just to the southeast of Georgia in the western Atlantic Ocean. There's a lot of details to fine tune. A lot has to come together, but the thinking is that frontal boundary that's going to move through, it's going to park itself down here to the south, and it could act as a little bit of an axis of lift and try to get some organization with anything that is to form, but very slim chances as it does currently stand. This was as of the 8 a.m. update this morning. We get another update at just about every 3 hours when we're looking out for these potential areas of developing. But there has been another storm that has formed in the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. That was Tropical Storm Barry that did move onshore just around Tampico in Mexico. This is eastern Mexico right here. You can see right here Brownsville, the southern tip of Texas. Barry is now just a remnant low pressure system, 30-mile-per-hour winds, pressures above 1,000 millibars. So it does look like as Barry continues to move over land, it is drastically weakening, but this kind of desert climate area of Mexico, that can result in some landslides, some very muddy conditions when you get a lot of rain dumped on them. So I imagine that's what areas around Tampico have been dealing with. And this is the second named storm of the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. So we will cross off the B name. The next name would be the C letter. That's going to be Chantal. So if anything does form in the Gulf over the course of the next few days, that would be the name that it does get. But we need to see a lot better chances of developing. And of course, to organize into at least a named storm, you have to have those winds that get up to about 35, 40 miles per hour and even greater in nature. But tropical storm criteria, it's going to be about 39 miles per hour. So we have to see a good amount of organization in order to get that C name. We very well may not get the C name, but after Chantal, we go to Dexter, Aaron, Fernand, and then we get into Gabrielle, and then of course a whole list of some more names. But starting to see the Atlantic wake up just a tad as we go into the end of June and transition into July, which will be tomorrow. Now as we get into the month of July, closer to the peak of hurricane season, so we could look at a little bit of an uptick in tropical activity for July as compared to what's been a very quiet June so far. So temperatures hovering below average the next 3 days. This was the graphic I was trying to show you just a little bit ago. Around 90 degrees, of course feeling a little bit warmer into the mid and upper 90s. Better chances of rain today, tomorrow, and Wednesday as opposed to the second half of your 7-day. So what you will see correlating with a little bit of a downtick in those rain chances will be a slight uptick in the actual temperatures. However, with less moisture in the forecast, not going to feel too much warmer than what these actual temperatures do read. Each morning low going to start out somewhere around 70 degrees. And then as we go into the end of the weekend and transition into next week, we could look at some rain chances to be back in the forecast around Wednesday or Thursday next week. But overall, we're just keeping our fingers crossed that this will come to fruition for your 4th of July weekend ahead. All right, I'm a little bit over my time, so that's going to do it for this edition of your extended forecast. We'll be back here at 10:30 sharp tomorrow for another update on your 4th plans.